Cold Steel Counterpoint Gunsite Edition. Pretty interesting little knife. It very much is designed as a, we'll call it a martial knife or a defensive knife. It has a little bit of, first of all, I would call this a bayonet grind. It's not really a true dagger. It's not double-edged, but it has this very significant false edge on the top, which runs halfway down. Makes it a very good piercing tip. Dagger-like, if not actually a dagger. The Gunsite version of the counterpoint has this half-serrated blade with Cold Steel's very effective serrations. Nonetheless, unlike many serrated knives, which are pure chisel ground, the serrations are chisel ground, that is, sharpened only on one side, while the plain edge is correctly sharpened on both sides. I've added the snaggletooth, which I add to pretty much all my Cold Steels. It also has this sort of pseudo file work on top, just to give it a little bit more pizzazz, I guess. And whereas the regular counterpoints are all black, the Gunsite edition is this sort of coyote brown. Handle is very good in a saber grip. And this pebble texture works pretty well, giving it some grip, but these large lightning holes add significant amounts of grip to it as well. I've got this one set up for left-hand use, which is how I always carry my knives that are meant more for social work rather than utility work. And the holes just kind of really lock your fingers in place. I'm a big fan of the Rex Applegate, Applegate Fairbairn dagger. I think that's one of the most beautiful styles of dagger there is. I've got a couple myself. I always kind of wished I had a folding version of it. There is, ironically enough, the Gerber Applegate Fairbairn folding knife. And this, I would say, beats the pants off it. It's made out of better steel, AUS 10. It has been carried a good bit, so it's got some discoloration in spots, but that doesn't worry me. It's still quite sharp. AUS 10 is certainly better than the Chinese steel the more recent Applegate Fairbairn folders have used. The Applegate Fairbairn was a rather flimsy liner lock, if I'm not mistaken. This has Cold Steel's Triad. Extremely beefy. The Applegate Fairbairn was tipped down only carry, so it would be carried in the pocket like this and the blade open like that. That is not my preferred way of carrying, nor is that the preferred way of carrying of most knife people, I would say. Cold Steel, on the other hand, with their counterpoint, keep on wanting to say counterattack, but that's their dagger. With their counterpoint is only tip down. It's only tip up carry, so it carries in the pocket like this. This is a one-take video, so I will stutter and mumble and make mistakes, but so be it. I'm not a professional. The fact that this Cold Steel labeled this version the Gunsite is interesting, and that's why I have my 1911 here. Gunsite was one of, if not the original firearms training academies, self-defense firearms training academies. It was founded by Colonel Jeff Cooper, a Marine Corps veteran of World War II, and I believe also the Korean War. He was also a spy at times. He had as well as a race car driver and a competitive shooter. He had a rather amazing life and left a huge legacy in the firearms world that we're only just now getting past. Jeff Cooper basically invented the modern technique of pistol shooting, which nowadays seems almost old-fashioned because it incorporated a number of things we take for granted now, like shooting with both hands, getting proper sight alignment instead of shooting from the hip. And it also incorporated some things that we've sort of gone by the wayside, like the Weaver stance, which has now pretty well been supplanted by the isosceles, or modified isosceles stance. All that to say, Jeff Cooper was a huge figure, and he was also a big gun writer as well as a trainer. He was still very much active when I was first getting into guns. I don't remember exactly when he died, but he was writing right up until his death, so far as I'm aware. That would have been probably the early mid-2000s, thereabouts. And he was a huge proponent of the 1911. He was probably single-handedly responsible for its continued popularity. And if not single-handedly responsible for it, then he was sort of its high priest, so to speak. Online, there's even, a meme that John Moses Browning was sort of a deity, and Jeff Cooper was his prophet. But Jeff Cooper, so far as I know, had little, if anything, to say about knives. And that's why it's interesting Cold Steel labeled it Gunsite. So why did Lynn Thompson go with Gunsite? Well, I'm thinking, I've never heard anything publicly said, but I'm thinking it has to do exactly with the Applegate Fairbairn folder. Rex Applegate was a contemporary of Jeff Cooper's. He was an Army intelligence officer in World War II. Rex Applegate, while Jeff Cooper basically reinvented the art of pistol craft, Rex Applegate was a big proponent of unarmed combat and knife combat. He had been heavily influenced by W.E. Fairbairn from England. The Applegate Fairbairn knife is named after Fairbairn, though Fairbairn had absolutely no input on its design. It was pretty much all Rex Applegate's design, so far as I'm aware. Sometimes people think the Applegate Fairbairn was a World War II knife. It was not. The Fairbairn and Sykes was a World War II knife. The Applegate Fairbairn didn't even exist, really, until the 80s. All that to say, this is similar to the Applegate Fairbairn knife, and Rex Applegate was something of a rival of Jeff Cooper's. I'm not sure that they ever directly had any particular conflict, but their lives were somewhat similar in ways. But their ideas on pistol craft and on fighting in general were quite different. While Jeff Cooper was the big proponent of the modern technique as proven on the firing range, Rex Applegate was more in favor of point shooting. I can't remember exactly what he called his system, but it was nearly the opposite. Instead of standing tall and proud and presenting a firearm with two hands and getting proper sight alignment and worrying about good recoil control like Jeff Cooper's modern technique, Rex Applegate's version was more you crouch, you throw your pistol up one-handed, and you make a quick snapshot. Both techniques have their pluses and minuses, though I'd say in the long term, Cooper's modern technique has definitely been more influential than Rex Applegate's version. That said, Rex Applegate proved, he proved the worth of his own technique several times, and it was also it has its own validity as well within its own set of circumstances. While Cooper was a big fan of the 1911, Rex Applegate was more a fan of Smith & Wessons, either Smith & Wesson revolvers or later the Smith & Wesson Model 59 double-action 9mm. I'm rambling about these old guys, these firearms and knife instructors from times past, and I really haven't said much about the knife in general. It's a good knife. I mean, what really is there to say? It's essentially a folding dagger, about as good as you can get as far as a folding dagger goes. Certainly as good as you can get for less than $100, I'd say. It's a fairly smallish one. The blade is 4 inches, which is a little bit light for any kind of self-defense purposes. The larger Counterpoint XL, this blade is very similar in shape and size to the actual Applegate Fairbairn dagger. But of course, having the bigger knife is at times advantageous and at other times disadvantageous. For one, this barely fits in some pockets, and for two, you have a lot more potential leverage for someone else to grab the handle or whatever else, but of course you have longer reach as well. Other than the size and also the partial serrations on the Gunsite version, the two are more or less identical. So that's it. Hope you enjoyed the video. I just figured I'd make a quick rambly talk on it this afternoon. So have a good day.